I want you to get together.
Hello everyone. Today I want to explore the multiple creatures of myth found within the lands of Australia, and the parallels to the Nephilim narrative within the biblical worldview that can be drawn from their Aboriginal Dreamtime framework. First, you might recall in episode 33 of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns that I examined a particular horde of deities from Australian Aboriginal history called the Wanginas. Extremely clown-like in their form, these are said to be the sacred creation spirits and source of the cultural lore for the Aboriginal peoples of the Kimberley region. I'm going to stop right here now and tell you that the origin story of these beings is so complicated, convoluted, and shrouded in uninterpretable allegory that even after reading multiple accounts, I still have no clue what happened exactly. I'm going to attempt to give an interpretation now for your sakes, but seriously, I implore you to check it out for yourself and just try to understand it. So here we go. The Wangina and the Wunga snake supposedly established the laws of life, marriage, kinship, and obligation to the country when they were in physical forms. They sculpted and shaped the earth to be what it is, and created living creatures on earth too. They lived both a physical and spiritual existence at the same time, through earthly avatars. Kind of. Because the Aboriginals believe that all of existence is happening all at once, within the boundaries of a continuous and non-linear, self-perpetuating process called the dreaming. Dreamtime is a term devised by anthropologists to refer to this religious cultural worldview attributed to the Australian Aboriginal beliefs. The dreaming is used to represent Aboriginal concepts of everywhen, during which ancestral figures with supernatural abilities inhabited the land. Think of this as the biblical antediluvian age. Dreamtime stories tell us of how the Wangina created the landscape and its inhabitants, and still continue to influence both. It's said that when the physical embodiment of these spirits found the place they would die, they painted their images on cave walls and entered a nearby waterhole. It's still today considered extremely offensive to paint a Wangina if you are not a part of the culture. Creation is believed to be the work of something called culture heroes, who travelled across a formless land, creating sacred sites and significant places of interest. This again sounds identical to the builders of megalithic structures and the creators of antediluvian societies, the heroes of old in Genesis 6, the Nephilim giants. These cultural heroes of Kimberley, the Wangina and Wunga serpent, aka the Nephilim and fallen angels, played their part in creation by putting their spirit into life forms, supposedly, that are birthed through the water into the physical realm. And all this was orchestrated from the dreaming realm which they truly resided. I know, right? Convoluted. The humans are believed to be creations of these beings, and we have a different spirit piece within us all. Aboriginal shamans and fathers-to-be communicate with these spirit beings today to find out what spirit totem is going to be within the newborn child. So are you following so far? It appears the Wangina are entities that worked closely with sky serpents to build the infrastructure of civilization and taught the people to live by their ways while claiming to be the creators of said peoples. This is starting to sound awfully similar to the relationship between the fallen serpentine seraphim angels and their Nephilim offspring, who also took over as gods and kings of all civilization, built cities, and made mankind subordinate to them, following their made-up, angel and earth-centered pagan religions and mythologies, lying to new generations about their true origins, claiming to be their ancestors and creators through virtue of putting a part of their soul into them. A euphemism, perhaps, for adding their Nephilim DNA into mankind's genetics. What is also interesting about this modern Aboriginal understanding that everyone has a Wandjina or serpent spirit within them as a so-called spirit totem is that it sounds eerily similar to the Western concept of disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, aka demons, possessing people. These would be the same spirits that Jesus cast out of people in the Bible. The only difference here is that the Aboriginal culture has been taught to believe that these entities are their ancestor spirits and are the creators of their civilization, so they accept the spirits within them. Just like African, Indian, Asian, and American ancestor spirit cultures. Through the rituals performed in the caves, through the songs, and especially through the mechanism of dream communication, Aboriginals have traditionally sought to influence the Wandjina, and thus to gain for themselves some measure of control over the natural world. This, too, is identical to the practice of summoning demons for fame and fortune in the modern Western world. The character of these entities was awful, and very similar to the prideful and cruel nature of the Nephilim in the Bible. For the most part, the Wandjina set examples of disruptive behaviour, seducing other men's wives, possibly to spread the Nephilim corruption, and quarrelling among themselves. The Nephilim did indeed fight one another over petty power struggles all the time, and specifically during the punishment of God to wipe them all out, as their angelic parents were made to watch. All myths about the Wandjina share one central action, in which the Wandjina round up the Aborigines and slaughter them with lightning and a flood, just because two Aborigines, children no less, have offended them by torturing an owl, their sacred bird. The story goes as follows. Dumbi is an owl which resides in the Narindian country. A boy and a girl teased Dumbi and plucked out his feathers. Dumbi flew to the Wandjina, Wodjin, who said he would create a large flood to punish the tribe where the boy and girl came from. At a place called Wanaliri, the Wandjina gathered a large flock of brolgas, which stomped on a huge black soil plain to create quicksand. The flood came and drowned many people. Those who tried to escape were lost in the quicksand. The boy and the girl were safe because they were on high ground. They were taken there by a kangaroo, and they travelled on the kangaroo's tail. A Tata lizard called Ganada warned the Wandjina that the boy and the girl had escaped. The rains and lightning started to chase the boy and girl, and they ran to a hollow boab tree. Once they were in the tree, the Wandjina closed it up, and they were lost forever. What a truly horrific story. You'll note from this artwork depicting all these characters that the owl appears above the shoulders of the Wandjina. The Wandjina also appears to be a representation of a cloud, with its body being made of raindrops. This concept of Nephilim being related to storms and rain is actually very common. For example, the Heyoka is a kind of sacred clown in the culture of the Sioux people of the Great Plains of North America, the Lakota and Dakotas. The Heyoka is a contrarian, jester, a satirist, who speaks, moves, and reacts in an opposite fashion to the people around them. Only those having visions of the thunder beings of the West, the Wakinyan, and who are recognized as such by the community, can take on the ceremonial role of the Heyoka. The Heyoka is a representation of the Wakinyan thunder spirit. Representations of this Wakinyan being from a Lakota artist in 1880 depicts a vision eerily similar to the Wandjina. Though it is speculation, I find the similar name of the entities to also be very intriguing: Wandjina and Wakinyan. Note the polka dot skin, wide circular eyes, human-bird hybrid body, riding on a rainbow-tailed beast with avian claws. Though the differences are apparent, I find the aesthetical similarities and their relation to bringing thunder more than coincidental. I'm sure there was plenty of genetic diversity of shape and colour in the Nephilim creatures, just as we see within other species on Earth, so minor differences can be expected, but they certainly appear to share enough features to be considered of the same kind at the very least. On a side note, the Sholomanar of Romania were said to be very pale-skinned, almost vampiric-looking men with red hair who were born with special powers that gave them the ability to be trained in a special school in black magic as the devil's servants who ride dragons. Like the Wandjina rain gods and their rainbow serpents, or the Heyoka thunder god riding its rainbow chimera beast, the Sholomanar could also control thunder, while riding a dragon. Are we just seeing culturally stylized representations of the same thing? If we come back now to the owl depictions with the Wandjina, it's very easy to see the similarities between the Wandjina's features and that of an owl. The owl also looks very similar to the phenomena of alien greys experienced in the modern age, and it wouldn't be the first time this connection has been made. Could it be that the Nephilim were a mix of both serpent and avian features from the feathered serpent, seraphim angel, fathers? The so-called owl in this Aboriginal tale could supposedly speak, welcoming the Aboriginals before being beaten and having its feathers torn out, so it's likely that this could have been some kind of child of the Wandjina themselves, a creature who inherited Wandjina owl features, perhaps the same offspring mentioned in the Bible of the Nephilim, the Nephil and the Eliud. Maybe this flood myth is the retelling of God's great flood, but the blame was put on the humans for not showing enough respect to the hybrid creatures instead of God, in a twisted attempt to maintain a perceived authority and godlike status after the flood. The owl was also a symbol for Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategy in Greek mythology, likely a fallen angel of biblical interpretation. According to myth, an owl sat on Athena's blind side, so that she could see the whole truth. In ancient Greece, the owl was a symbol of higher wisdom, and it is also the guardian of the Acropolis. It's still used today as a symbol for libraries and the controlling of knowledge. Very fitting for secret societies who literally control the flow of information to the masses. Perhaps this is why there is a giant statue of an owl found in Bohemian Grove, the yearly meeting place of the elite. On a side note, I've mentioned this before, but let's not forget that Athena also wore the head of a Nephilim Gorgon Medusa on her chest. A being who has similar red hair, white skin, clownish features as the Wandjina. So, with the groundwork laid for how trippy Australian mythology is, we can now move on to other creatures found on the continent, starting with the Memes. These creatures seem to be another variant of the human-serpent hybrids of the Nephilim, with their own unique clownish aesthetics that differ slightly from the Wandjina. Aboriginal rock paintings of the Mimi spirits can be found dating back as far as 50,000 years ago, supposedly, though I have absolutely no idea where they get these ridiculous numbers like 50,000 years ago from. Memes are a part of the fairy-like beings of Arnhem Land in the folklore of the indigenous Australians of Northern Australia. They are described as having extremely thin and elongated bodies, so thin as to be in danger of high winds. To avoid this, they usually spend most of their time living in rock crevices. They are said to have taught the Aborigines of Australia how to hunt and prepare meat. The Mimis are tall, thin beings that still live today in the rocky ridges of northern Australia, as spirits. In the dream time, they taught many skills, including hunting, weaving, fishing, painting on rock and on bark, ceremonial songs and dances. They taught these to old medicine men who in turn passed their knowledge on to the elders of the tribe, so that they could teach their other chosen men. Without a written language, painting was the only way in which the history and religion of the tribe could be passed down, thereby ensuring that future generations would know of the deeds of the ancestral beings who walked the earth in the beginning of time. They are generally calm in nature, and only get upset when an intruder kills or injures one of their pets. They are not against any other of these species being killed for food, but they become extremely upset if one of their own pets is harmed. Though I don't think there's any stories of them slaughtering thousands like the Wandjina did, when an owl got hurt slightly. All night long the Mimis hunt and fish and hold ceremonies. Then at dawn they go back to their homes and pull the rock door shut after them. Aborigines respect the wishes of the Mimi spirits to have complete privacy, and are careful to stay well away from the escarpments at night. Mimis are also said to be mischievous and capricious spirits, who are believed to possess mystical powers and live forever, just like the Wandjinas, and just like the demonic spirits of the Nephilim. I think they're all the same thing. How these beings can be both a non-corporeal spirit and a physical entity at the same time is very confusing, as that is just not how we traditionally view spirits within the Western framework. To us, you're either one or the other. You're a spirit or you're a physical living being. But that's just not how things work in the dream time. Within their worldview of how the world and universe works, you can be both simultaneously. As you can see from Aboriginal artistic representations, these long-bodied creatures have a psychedelic snake-like pattern to their skin, aligned with a long snake-like torso and limbs. A large halo and clownish grin appear to be common too, unlike their Wandjina kin, who have no mouth at all. These appear to simply have been around in the past, living their lives and teaching mankind tricks on how to survive the harsh environment. Today they seem to keep to themselves and come out at night. Like I said, it appears they are considered both spiritual beings and physical beings simultaneously, like all mythical creatures who exist within the multi-temporal dream time of the past, future, and present. I'm starting to wonder if the Aboriginals have some form of connection to the spirit realm and can actually see the spirits as clear as day, all the time. Therefore assume they are also physical in nature. Could this have something to do with the paturi plant? This powerful narcotic is used as a stimulant when chewed, and powerful psychedelic when drank as a brew. And like most ancestor worship societies, the shamanistic practice of using plants to commune with the spirit realm is an important aspect of their culture, ayahuasca being the most infamous. Used in coming-of-age initiation rituals to continue the culture's tradition to the next generation, does this psychedelic plant give the Aboriginals the ability to see the spirit realm and all the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, Nephil, and Elio all the time? Hence this confusion that they are both physical and spiritual simultaneously. Do they literally see the entities doing their ceremonies next to the rock crevices because they're constantly in touch with the spiritual realm? For the Martu, the Aboriginal people who lived in Pilbara for thousands of years, Kumpupantili, as the lake bed is known, is an area to be avoided at all costs. In the sands beneath, the legend goes, is where the Nyernangalku live. This name, which roughly translates to "will eat me," provides some indication of the Nyernangalku's fearsome predilections. living under the dry lake in their own universe. The bold, fanged, fearsome Nyaerngaalkus emerge only to snatch anyone foolish enough to pass overhead with their long, curving claws. These creatures sound like quintessential Nephilim vampiric cannibals who dwell between the realms of the living and the dead, just as the famed Rephaim or Dead Ones of the Bible. Or perhaps they could be remnants of human-animal hybrids who corrupted their flesh just before the flood of Noah, during the times of the mixing of kinds discussed in Jasher. Those who retreated underground to avoid the watery death, perhaps. Other such examples are the utterly bizarre Bunyip, which is literally a creature that epitomizes the phrase mixing of kinds. In some tales, it's a dog-like or seal-like creature. Bunyips have been described as being as big as a horse and as small as a dog. They may have flippers, fangs, tusks, 1 or 2 eyes, shaggy fur, scales, or horns. Descriptions of the animal's behavior also vary wildly, from a man-eating monster to a timid plant-eating creature that shies away from humans. Like every other continent, Australia also has its own wild man giant tradition. The Walpiri Pankalangu, which extends further across the central and western deserts, usually wears a woven hairstring belt around his middle. This belt is closely connected to his foul purposes. Pankalangu, huge lumbering bestial humanoids, roam the desert in search of lost human babies or infants who've crawled or wandered away from the main camp. Being juicy, tender, and easy to catch, Pankalangu grab their prey by their little legs, upending them quickly, killing the infants swiftly and expertly, by dashing their brains out on the hard red earth in a single blow. After slaying his defenseless victim, the Pankalangu will string the little body around his waist, tying its legs into its hairstring belt, so that his head dangles and bobs up and down as he strides along. Pankalangu will continue on his roving quest for more chubby little babies who've strayed from the care of their adults, and goes on catching them until his hairstring belt is full, and he is completely encircled by lifeless dangling babes. Then Pankalangu makes a fire, chucking the dead tots into the ashes, after which he settles down to gorge himself on a mouth-watering meal of slow roast baby. Now, this was often used as a cautionary tale for young children not to wander too far away from their encampments, of course, but this is basically a quintessential example, once again, of the wild man of Europe mythology, and also Nephilim. Australia also has half-human fish women called the York-Yorks. It is a creature similar to the typical mermaid in appearance, and has seaweed for hair. Seaweed that floats up to the water's surface is said by the Aboriginal people to come from the head of a York-York. While this creature's normal form has the upper body of a humanoid female, the lower part of a fish, it is also capable of shape-shifting. Among its favoured forms are that of a crocodile, a dragonfly, snake or swordfish. Another power the York-York was believed to possess includes the ability to manipulate the weather, such as bringing nourishing rain or sending storms on those who make them angry, just like the Wandjina, or the Heyoka, or the Solomonari. With the abilities these spirits possess, some people claim that they are the daughters and or female counterparts, thus the wives, of the rainbow serpent creator god. Now this is fascinating, because in the book of Enoch it makes it clear, very clear, that the daughters of Cain, who became the wives of and mated with the seraphim angels, became sirens. Is that what we're seeing an example of here with the York-Yorks? In the theme of almost human and animalistic features mixed together, there are the Namarodos. They have long claws and at night fly through the air, with long hair streaming, to prey on human victims. Parents once again control children by cautioning them not to run around outside at night, particularly when there is a high wind which echoes the sound that the Namorodos make as they whistle and swish through the night sky. Their skeletal bodies held together only by thin strips of flesh. Namorodos are somewhat akin to vampires once again, in that they suck out their victims' life juices after killing them first by sinking their long sharp claws into them. In turn, their victims are also transformed into Namorodos. One can't help but speculate if this almost virus-like method that vampires seem to use to spread themselves from one human being to another was used to spread the corruption of all flesh during this pre-flood era so quickly. Just food for thought. It seems Australia was rife with both the fallen angels in the guise of rainbow serpents, the Nephilim offspring in the guise of the Wangina, the numerous children of the Nephilim in the guise of the Mimis, and the multiple other fairy folk of the land. We also find numerous chimeric hybrid human-animal monsters as a result of the mixing of kinds just before the flood, as described in Genesis 6:12 and Jasher 4:18. The people of the land have been lied to about their own creation by these entities, just as all other cultures who experienced the same entities have been, with their own cultural specific lie. If the same entities are telling a different story to different peoples all around the world about the nature of their existence for the purpose of worship, then they are clearly not being honest. We can see from the rock art depictions of the Dreamtime entities that the place was teeming with long-bodied, insectoid, psychedelic-patterned humanoid things. If we look at rock art found in the canyons of Utah, we can see extremely similar entities depicted, as humankind contends with them through battle, or simply alongside them. But perhaps that is a video for another time. If you like what you heard, consider supporting me on Patreon. $5 a month will get you access to an extra video every Friday, as well as extra content relating to the book. If you want to support the book, you can find the link to the GoFundMe down below. £100, which is roughly $125, is kind of like a pre-order and will get you a free signed copy of the book once published. You can also follow me on Twitter and Telegram, but thanks for listening and, as always, God bless.
I want you to get together.